Hi everyone. Welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today. A man betrayed by his wife sets out to rebuild his life. But as new love blossoms and old wounds linger, a shocking twist threatens to change everything. So let's start. What? I blurted out, snapping my head toward my wife, Rachel. What did you just say? I asked again, trying to process what I thought I had heard. Jason, I know you're going to be upset, she said cautiously, but I'm not happy right now. I've been thinking that maybe we should try a trial separation. I need time to figure out what I really want. I stood there, grilling steaks on the deck, trying to keep my voice steady. And where exactly are you planning to go? I asked. My friend Claire has a spare room, she continued, avoiding eye contact. She said I could stay with her for a little while. When were you going to tell me, Rachel? Or were you just going to leave a note on my pillow tonight? I asked, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. Please don't raise your voice, Jason, she snapped back. I don't want Brandon to hear any of this. Our 6-year-old son was inside, probably playing with his toys, completely unaware his whole world was about to change. So, what you're saying is you've already made up your mind, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Are you going to explain this to Brandon? Or should I do it after you're gone? I'll talk to him myself tonight before bed, Rachel replied softly. This isn't forever, right? You're moving in with Claire, I scoffed, shaking my head. I guess I should have seen this coming. I was getting angrier by the second. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I'll draft the paperwork tomorrow, I said, slamming the grill lid down. You can sign it, and I'll file it with the court by Wednesday. Paperwork. Rachel blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, paperwork, I said firmly. If you're leaving, I want it to be a legal separation. That way, when you don't come back, it turns into a divorce automatically. No need to drag this out twice. I don't want a divorce, Jason, she said, her voice softening. I just need some time to figure things out. That's all. Bullshit, Rachel. I shot back. I've been trying to get you to talk to me for months, but you've been too busy hanging out with Claire and your new friends. Now you want to move in with her? Don't tell me this isn't something you've been planning for a while. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't done. You're not doing this with my blessing, and I'm definitely not going to stand by and let you make a fool out of me. This wasn't how Rachel had expected things to go. She thought I'd be angry, sure, but she figured she could talk me into it. Instead, it was blowing up in her face. Jason, please, she said quietly, but I stormed off before she could say anything more. A few minutes later, she found me upstairs, throwing her clothes and personal stuff into the spare room. Take your things and get out, I said without even looking at her. I don't care anymore. I'll send the paperwork to your office. Sign it and send it back, I added, grabbing my coat. Don't worry, I'll take Brandon out to dinner. He doesn't need to see his mom walk out. Rachel called Claire as soon as I left. Claire, it's me, she said, her voice shaking. Jason didn't take it well. Not at all. He's already threatening divorce. I told you he'd be pissed, Claire replied calmly. But give it some time. In a couple of weeks, he'll be begging you to come back. Rachel wiped her eyes. I hope you're right. Right now, he's ready to throw me out and file papers. I'll come over and help you pack, Claire assured her. The sooner you're out of there, the sooner you can focus on what you need. By the time Brandon and I got back home, most of Rachel's stuff was gone, and the house already felt different. Rachel had a tough pregnancy. She was bedridden for the last 5 months and, as a result, gained a lot of weight. By the time she gave birth to Brandon, she had ballooned to nearly 250 pounds. I never said a word about it, though. Her weight didn't matter to me. I loved her just the same. For a while, we were happy. Everything was fine until one day, Rachel overheard 2 of her coworkers talking about her. She's such a pretty woman, one of them said, but it's a shame she's the size of a house. They both laughed, and one of them joked, I bet she gets her clothes custom-made at Omar's tent shop. They thought it was hilarious, but Rachel was devastated. She locked herself in the bathroom, crying, and that's where Claire found her. Hey, are you okay, Rachel? Claire asked gently. No, I'm not, Rachel sobbed. Everyone thinks I'm a fat pig. If they only knew how hard it's been for me to lose weight, maybe they wouldn't be so cruel, she cried, her voice trembling. Girl, listen to me, Claire said firmly. All you need is a good diet and a gym membership. There's a beautiful woman hiding under all that extra weight. You just have to make up your mind to bring her out. Rachel took Claire's words to heart. Around that time, I was handling the books for a local gym and managed to get us a great membership deal. We both signed up the following week, and the gym had a nursery so we could bring Brandon along with us. Rachel became obsessed with working out. She hit the gym 6 days a week while I could barely squeeze in 3 nights. But when the weight didn't fall off as fast as she wanted, she went to a doctor and got a prescription for diet pills. I wasn't thrilled about it, but she was determined to lose the weight. 8 months later, Rachel was down to 125 pounds. She looked amazing. She bought a whole new wardrobe, and people at her job couldn't stop talking about how great she looked, especially the men. That's when the problem started. At her company's Christmas party, things took a turn. Rachel wore a dress that was more than a little revealing. Her male coworkers were all over her, flirting nonstop. She soaked up the attention, smiling from ear to ear, clearly enjoying every second of it. Under the mistletoe, she must have kissed a dozen guys before I finally stepped in to stop it. "Rachel, that's enough. It's time to go," I said, grabbing her arm. But she resisted. "I don't want to leave yet," she said, annoyed. "I'm leaving, Rachel. Right now. With or without you," I told her firmly. She finally gave in, but I could tell she was pissed. On the way home, the tension boiled over, and we had a massive fight. "Rachel, you were acting like some cheap hooker tonight," I yelled. "Everyone saw those guys with their hands all over you, and you just stood there letting it happen. It was just a little fun." "No big deal," she shrugged. "Not from where I stood," I shot back. "How would you like it if I was all over some girl, kissing and grabbing her?" But she was too drunk to listen to reason. That night, she got sick. Thankfully, she'd taken off her dress before she threw up. The next morning, she looked awful and apologized, promising it wouldn't happen again. But it did. She started going out for drinks with her friends every Wednesday after work. At first, she'd be home by 6:30. Then it stretched to 7:30. Before long, she wasn't getting home until nearly 9 p.m. By then, Brandon was already in bed, and I was left stewing in frustration. When we first got married, our sex life had been incredible. We couldn't keep our hands off each other. But now, if it happened once a week, that was a lot. One thing was certain, though, every Wednesday night, when Rachel finally got home, she was in the mood. And that night was no exception. Neither of us had much experience when we got married, and at first, we were a little shy about trying new things. Over time, we learned what we liked and got more comfortable experimenting. But lately, Rachel had been coming home wanting to try new moves I'd never even heard of, and I couldn't help but wonder where she was getting these ideas. When we got married, Rachel couldn't give a blowjob to save her life. But now, let's just say even a bad BJ was better than no BJ at all. That night, she walked out of the bathroom completely naked, grinning mischievously. "Where's my stud muffin?" she teased. She'd had more than a few drinks and was later than usual, but she knew exactly how to get me in a good mood. She climbed up from the foot of the bed and onto me, grinning like she always did when she wanted to play. We had some wild sex that night. "God, I needed that," Rachel said, rolling on her back with a satisfied sigh. I leaned in, kissed her, and told her how happy I was to be married to her. Things had been good between us for a long time. At least, that's how it used to be until this week. After dinner, Brandon and I came home to an empty house. "That damn Claire," I muttered to myself. Ever since Rachel lost all that weight, Claire had been whispering in her ear, pushing her to do this or that. No wonder Claire's husband left her. She was a mess, and now she was turning my wife into one too. I got Brandon ready for bed, tucked him in, and read him a story. When he asked about his mom, I just told him, "Mommy's visiting a friend and will be home in a couple of days." But deep down, I knew better. Once Brandon was asleep, I went downstairs and called my mom to bring her up to speed. "Mom, can you help watch Brandon during the day until I figure something out?" I asked. "Honey, Rachel will come to her senses," Mom replied. "She won't be able to stay away from Brandon for more than a day or two before she goes crazy missing him." "I hope you're right," I told her, but I wasn't so sure. "Can you be here before I head to work?" "Of course," Mom said. "I'll be over in the morning." By Monday, I was done waiting. I called my lawyer, Grant. "Rachel left me," I told him. "I need to make sure I'm completely protected, especially when it comes to custody of Brandon." "You want full custody?" Grant asked. Yes, and I want it in writing. I want it spelled out clearly that if either of us does something to break our marriage vows, the other gets a 65 to 35 split of the assets, I explained. I think she's considering cheating on me, and I want to be covered. You want me to get this done by tomorrow? Grant asked, sounding surprised. Isn't this a bit quick, Jason? She just left, and you're already talking about divorce papers. Rachel's been planning this for a while, I said flatly. Maybe this will snap her out of it. If it doesn't, I'm not going to sit back and lose everything I've worked for just because she wants to explore new things. All right, Grant agreed. I'll draw it up today and have her served at work tomorrow. Good, I said. I just need her to see what she stands to lose. That's all. Anything else? Grant asked. Not right now, I replied. But I'll need a couple more agreements drafted later in the week. On Tuesday, Rachel went to work feeling down. She hadn't been away from Brandon or me for this long in years. After lunch, she was told a man was waiting in her office. Rachel Brooks? He asked when she walked in. Yes, that's me, she replied. What can I do for you? You've been served, he said, handing her a manila envelope. Rachel sat at her desk, stunned, and spent the next half hour reading through the conditions laid out in the separation paperwork. It looked more like a divorce agreement than anything else. The document stated that I would have full custody of Brandon, with Rachel only allowed visitation if she gave reasonable notice. By the time she finished reading, Rachel wasn't just hurt, she was angry. I've been gone for 2 days, and Jason's already writing off our marriage, she muttered to herself. She tried calling me, but my secretary told her I was out of the office. My cell phone went straight to voicemail. At that moment, I was home, busy changing the locks on the house and sorting out our finances. I took Rachel's name off the insurance and the 401k, making sure everything was in my name only. By 4 p.m., I was done with it all. I turned my phone back on and saw 12 missed calls from Rachel. Shit, I muttered. Then I deleted them all. That evening, Brandon and I had dinner at my mom's house. I told her what I'd done. Rachel's going to be furious, Jason, Mom said. I know I would be if I were in her shoes. How far are you planning to take this? All the way, I told her. I can't fix this marriage by myself, especially if she's not willing to listen. So I'm raising the stakes. She started this mess, but if I find out she's been cheating, I'll finish it. Mom gave me a look. I've never seen this side of you before, she said, shaking her head. Remind me never to get on your bad side. The next day, Rachel went home and tried to use her key, only to find it didn't work. What the hell? She muttered. That's when she noticed the new lock. Damn him, she whispered angrily, pulling out her phone to call me. But, like before, it went straight to voicemail. Everything's done now, I thought to myself as I ticked off the items on my checklist. The locks were changed, the accounts were updated, and the papers had been served. Now all I could do was wait. Rachel showed up at my office on Wednesday morning, looking more than a little frazzled. Jason, my credit cards aren't working, she said. And when I tried to pick up my prescription, they told me I no longer have insurance. Do you really hate me that much? I'm just covering my bases, I said flatly. And let's not forget, you walked out on me. I'll keep paying for the house and everything Brandon needs, but from now on, you'll have to handle your own expenses. That way, we won't have any financial issues to argue about. You're letting this get totally out of control, Rachel snapped, her voice rising. I just needed a little time for myself. That's all. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my desk. Rachel, do you see the word stupid tattooed across my forehead? I asked in the calmest, most serious tone I could manage. I might not be the smartest guy in the world, but I wasn't born yesterday. Claire's got your head so twisted around, you don't even know which way is up. You think you can just act like you're single again with no consequences? Think again. Rachel looked stunned. I continued. The first time I find out you've broken your vows, we're done. And honestly, you've probably already crossed that line, so I don't even know why we're having this conversation right now. I'm so pissed off I can't see straight. You need to leave before I say something that'll make whatever's left of this marriage completely unsalvageable. Rachel stood there for a moment, shocked, before her expression hardened. You don't get to treat me like a child, Jason, she spat. I'm an equal partner in this marriage, not someone you can boss around. So screw you. I leaned back in my chair and smirked. Well, that hasn't happened much in the last 6 months either. But I suppose you're getting plenty on the side now, aren't you? Her eyes widened, and she turned on her heel and stormed out. What Rachel didn't know was that I'd started having her followed about a month earlier. So far, it hadn't gone beyond a little flirting and some inappropriate touching. But I knew that living with Claire would tempt her further, and I wanted her to understand exactly what she stood to lose if she crossed the line. The first 2 weeks after she left were tough. Rachel made a point to visit Brandon, but she barely said 2 words to me. I kept having her followed, but there wasn't much new to report. She was still hanging out with Claire and their friends, but instead of just Wednesdays, she was going out at least 4 nights a week. Looks like someone's making up for lost time, I muttered to myself as I read the latest report. Meanwhile, I realized I needed help with Brandon. I hired a nanny, a young woman named Ivy, fresh out of college and struggling to find full-time work. She was 23, about 5 feet 9 inches with blonde hair and a slim build. Ivy came from a big family and had 2 younger brothers, so she knew how to handle young boys. She jumped at the chance when she saw my ad. We agreed on pay and hours, and she moved in the next day. Ivy worked part-time at a mid-priced restaurant on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. The rest of the time, she helped me with Brandon, and we all had dinner together. It didn't take long for Brandon to warm up to her. After a few weeks, he was completely at ease with Ivy, especially when she read him bedtime stories. Ivy, I really appreciate everything you're doing for Brandon, I told her one night. With his mom out of the picture for now, he needs all the stability I can give him. Ivy smiled warmly. I understand. Your mom told me everything. She wanted to make sure I knew the situation in case Rachel tried to take Brandon. Honestly, I just can't believe she walked out on you like that. I sighed. I guess Rachel got confused about what's really important. She let people like Claire convince her that the grass is greener on the other side. Well, it'll all be over in about 40 days, I added. And it can't come soon enough for me. What I didn't realize was that my life was about to take a major shift, and that things would hit the fan in less than a week. You see, I'm a silent partner in the accounting firm where I work. I've brought in so much new business over the past 2 years that the owners made me a 15% partner. I asked them to keep it quiet. I wanted to stay under the radar so I could get an honest feel for how the staff viewed the company and how things were running. My latest achievement was a deal with an overseas garment manufacturer that operated plants in 5 Asian countries. It was a huge account and something I'd been working toward for months. I met the owners of the overseas garment company at a party about a year ago. We chatted, and I shared a few ideas about how my firm could help streamline their operations. They seemed interested, and we set up a formal meeting the following week to discuss it further. Jason, I like the way your firm operates, one of the owners told me during that meeting. You go beyond the usual services and add a personal touch. That's exactly what we need. He explained that each of their plants currently operated independently and that they needed someone to implement a unified system so all the facilities could be managed from one overseas office. They weren't thrilled when I told them I wouldn't be moving abroad to manage it personally, but I assured them that I'd oversee everything remotely to prevent any slip-ups. Eventually they agreed. With a signed contract and a handshake, the deal was done and the celebration began. It had taken 9 months of hard work to finalize this account. I couldn't wait to go home and share the good news. In my mind, I pictured taking Rachel out to the best restaurant in town, treating her to a night she'd never forget, and ending it by making love to her. But when I walked through the door, the house was empty, and so was my heart. Ivy showed up about 20 minutes later with Brandon and some Chinese takeout. I was bursting with excitement and needed to share my news with someone. Forget the takeout, I told her. We're all going out tonight to celebrate. Put on your best outfit. We're going out in style. My bosses had made reservations at the best restaurant in town for 8 p.m., and a limo was scheduled to pick us up at 7:30. We had to hurry. I quickly shaved, showered, and got dressed. Then I helped Brandon get ready so Ivy would have more time to herself. By 7:15, Brandon and I were ready to go. I stood at the bottom of the stairs waiting when Ivy walked down, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. I hope you don't mind, she said, looking a little shy. I didn't have anything fancy, so I found one of your wife's dresses that sort of fits. She wasn't kidding. It sort of fit. It hugged her like a glove, though it was a bit short since Ivy was taller than Rachel. "Do you think it looks okay?" she asked, smoothing the fabric nervously. "You look great," I said, my voice a little hoarse. I couldn't help but stare as the doorbell rang. The three of us climbed into the back of the limo just as Rachel was driving down our street. Her car slowed as she saw us getting in. "What the hell?" she muttered, turning her car around to follow. Rachel parked outside the restaurant and watched from a distance as we got out of the limo and walked inside. "That asshole," she fumed. "He takes them to the best restaurant in town, and when I asked to go, he said we couldn't afford it." She gripped the steering wheel, her anger boiling over. "And who the hell is that woman wearing my dress?" Inside, we were having a wonderful night. I was the guest of honor, and we ate and drank until we were stuffed. Ivy was the one who eventually reminded me it was time to leave. "Brandon's getting tired," she said gently. "We should head home, or you'll never get him up for school tomorrow." "You're right," I agreed. We said our goodbyes, and I thanked everyone for the evening. But as I shook hands with my colleagues, I noticed something. They weren't really paying attention to me. Their eyes kept drifting toward Ivy. And it wasn't just the men. The women were giving her jealous glances too. They'd all heard about Rachel leaving to find herself, and now it looked like I'd wasted no time finding a replacement. I could see the amusement in their eyes as they chuckled among themselves. The limo ride home was quiet. Brandon fell asleep almost as soon as we got in. Once we got home, I carried him upstairs, tucked him in a bed, and kissed him on the forehead. "Good night, buddy," I whispered. Downstairs, I found Ivy sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a glass of wine. She looked up and smiled as I walked in, still in my tux. "I want to thank you for tonight," she said softly. "You didn't have to take me, you know. How could I have left you here alone?" I replied, pouring myself a glass of wine and sitting down across from her. "Besides, I really enjoy your company." She smiled again, a little more shyly this time. "I hope it wasn't too boring for you, being stuck with a bunch of accountants all night." "Not at all," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I never realized your job was so interesting, and it's clear that everyone really likes you. Including me," she added with a small smile. "You make me feel like part of the family, even though I'm just a nanny." Her words hit me harder than I expected. "Be still my heart," I thought, and God help me, I wish my reaction wasn't so obvious. I shifted uncomfortably, trying to hide it. It had been a long time since I'd experienced that kind of intimacy with anyone. The last few times with Rachel had been disappointing. She'd just gone through the motions, with no real passion. Part of me wanted to take Ivy upstairs and make love to her right then and there. But I knew I couldn't. I was still married, and no matter how strained things were with Rachel, I wasn't going to cross that line. Tonight was magical, but I couldn't let it go any further. "Ivy," I said softly, "I wish things were different. But they're not. So, as much as I hate to say it, I need to take a cold shower and go to bed." She gave me a knowing smile. "Maybe someday things will be different." "Maybe," I agreed, standing up and heading upstairs, wishing more than anything that tonight could have ended differently. "I really appreciate tonight, Ivy," I told her, leaning in to kiss her cheek as she hugged me warmly. Her embrace lingered a little longer than I expected, but I pulled away, reminding myself to keep things in check. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sensation of someone climbing into my bed. By the warmth against me, I knew right away it was Ivy, and that she wasn't wearing anything. I started to say something, but she pressed a finger to my lips. "Jason, I know we can't do anything tonight," she whispered softly. "I just want to be close to you. That's all." She spooned me, her warmth radiating through the sheets. It had been a long time since I'd felt that kind of comfort. I drifted off to sleep with her arms around me. The next morning, I woke up alone. I found Ivy downstairs, fully dressed, cooking breakfast for the three of us. Nothing was said about the night before. Meanwhile, across town, Rachel was furious. Here I am, trying to figure out what I want in life with Jason, and he's already thrown me to the curb and found himself some bimbo, she muttered, slamming her hand on the desk. She made the mistake of venting to Claire, who only made things worse. "All husbands cheat, Rachel," Claire said with a smirk. "You might as well enjoy your newfound freedom. Let's go out and celebrate tonight." Rachel wasn't in the mood to party, but Claire wouldn't take no for an answer. By evening, the two of them were back at Mario's, the usual spot, and the bar was packed. After a couple of drinks, most of their group called it a night and headed home. But not Rachel and Claire. Two guys approached them. Claire wasted no time making out with one of them, while the other guy asked Rachel to dance. She agreed, and when a slow song started, she melted into his arms. His hands roamed her body as they danced, and she didn't stop him. It had been a long time since Rachel had been with a man, and this guy looked like he was sculpted by the gods. He wanted her, and she wanted him just as badly. She didn't stop him when he kissed her. She didn't stop him when he steered her toward a dark corner of the dance floor. And she didn't stop him when his hands slipped under her dress. But she should have, especially because the private investigator I'd hired was there, capturing everything on camera. The four of them ended up back at Claire's apartment. Rachel, now naked and lying on the bed with the man, finally snapped out of it. "I can't," she whispered, pushing him away. "I just can't do it. I'm still married, and no matter what's happened, I still love my husband." The guy groaned in frustration but backed off, leaving her alone. Rachel ended up taking 2 cold showers that night, trying to wash away her guilt. "I need to get my head straight," she told herself the next morning. Meanwhile, I sat in my office, staring at my computer screen. The photos of Rachel's night out were all there. The dancing, the kissing, the moment they walked into Claire's apartment. The final photo showed all 4 of them entering the building. I forwarded the images to my lawyer, Grant, with a note. "Get the paperwork ready, but don't serve them until Monday." I sighed heavily. I'd really wanted to fix things with Rachel. I'd held out hope that we could make it work. But after seeing those pictures, I knew it was over. The next day, I told my bosses, "I'll handle the Asian project myself. I need to get away for a while and clear my head." "Everything's set to start on the 12th, they told me. "Can you be ready to leave by then?" "Give me a couple of days to tie up loose ends and sort out my personal life," I replied. "I'll be ready." That afternoon, I wrapped up my unfinished projects at work and drafted a power of attorney for my mom, so she could handle my affairs while I was gone. I told Grant to serve Rachel with the divorce papers on Monday. By then, I'd be on a plane and out of reach. She gave me 2 days' notice when she left. I said to myself, so she'll get the same. That night, I went home to a house that wouldn't be mine for much longer. Rachel and I had picked it out together. Every corner of it held memories, good ones, but now they were all tainted. It was a strange feeling, knowing I was walking away from it all. At dinner, I was unusually quiet. Ivy noticed. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "It's not you," I reassured her. "I've just got a lot on my mind. We'll talk after Brandon goes to bed." By 10 p.m., the house was silent. Brandon was fast asleep, and Ivy and I sat across from each other in the living room. Ivy spoke first. "Jason, if this is about the other night, I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. I promise." I shook my head. "It's not that. Do you remember that big company party a few weeks ago? The one celebrating the Asian project?" She nodded. "Well, I've decided to handle the overseas work myself," I told her. "Brandon and I will be leaving early Monday morning. And there's something I need to ask you." Ivy's eyes started to water as she realized where this was going. "Do you want to come with us?" I asked. Her face lit up instantly, her tears turning into a smile. "Hell yes," she exclaimed, running into my arms. "Do you have an updated passport?" I asked, laughing. "Yeah," she said, still beaming. "I got it last year for a cruise with my college friends." "Good. Then it's settled," I said. "We'll need to pack up everything by Saturday. The movers are coming to ship our stuff ahead of time." Ivy nodded eagerly. "I'll take care of it all." As I held her close, I finally felt a sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't seem so bleak. "I updated it last year when I went on a cruise with my college friends," Ivy said with a smile. "Good. Then it's all set," I told her. "We need to have everything packed by Saturday because they're shipping all our stuff ahead of time. Leave just enough clothes for the weekend and Monday's travel. You can tell your family and friends, but I don't want Rachel to know until we're in the air." I paused for a moment, considering what I was about to do. "I'm not entirely sure it's legal to take Brandon and leave the country without informing her," I admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway. I'll deal with the fallout when we get back." That night, I sat down with my mom and explained everything to her. I handed over my power of attorney, so she could manage my affairs while I was gone. Things will probably blow up on Monday when Rachel gets the papers, I said, but I still want you to put the house up for sale next week. Grant will send you a copy of the documents I'm giving to her. If she has any questions, tell her to take it up with Grant. Mom gave me a long, searching look. Are you sure this is what you want, Jason? You don't want to try and work things out with her? I shook my head. She made her bed. Now she can sleep in it, with whoever she wants. Mom wasn't done. You're taking Ivy with you, she said, clearly fishing for more details. I don't know what's going to happen with us, I admitted. But she makes me smile and keeps me sane. That's more than I've felt in a long time. Beyond that, I don't want to say too much. Mom nodded slowly. We'll be over Sunday night to say goodbye to Brandon. Monday morning came, and Rachel was trying to get in touch with me. She called my office, but they told her I was on a special project and would pass along the message. Frustrated, she dialed my cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Now what the hell is he up to? She muttered to herself. A knock on her office door interrupted her thoughts. A man stepped in, holding an envelope. Rachel Brooks? He asked. She nodded, and he handed her the envelope. You've been served, he said before leaving. Rachel tore into the envelope, pulling out the paperwork. The note at the top was brief. I guess you've made your decision. Hope you have a great life. It was signed with my name. Then she saw the photos. Her heart sank. Oh shit, she whispered. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the images. They were damning. Pictures of her dancing, kissing another man, and sneaking into Claire's apartment with him. How the hell did he get these? She muttered, panic rising. That son of a bitch must have had me followed. The realization hit her hard, but I never slept with him. I've got to make Jason understand that, she told herself, trying to push down the panic. Rachel immediately drove to my mom's house, hoping for answers. What do you mean he's gone? She demanded when my mom opened the door. Jason's on a 4 to 5 month project overseas, Mom explained calmly. He left with Brandon early this morning. Rachel's face turned red with rage. He can't take Brandon away from me, especially out of the country. I'll take him to court. I'll see him thrown in jail. Mom didn't flinch. Rachel, Jason has full custody of Brandon. Remember? You gave up that right when you decided to leave and find yourself. Rachel's anger dissolved into tears. I screwed up, she admitted, her voice breaking. I made a huge mistake, but I still love him. I never slept with anyone else. He has to believe me. Mom's expression softened, but her words were firm. Rachel, I saw the photos, and if my husband had ever done what you did, I would have divorced him on the spot. Rachel sank into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. I need to talk to him. I need to explain that it wasn't what it looked like. But it was too late. Jason was gone, and for now, so was Brandon. If I were you, Jason's mom told Rachel, I'd write him a letter. Say everything you need to, and I'll make sure he gets it. In the meantime, you'd better get a lawyer. Rachel took her advice. She poured her heart into that letter, explaining how alcohol had clouded her judgment, how she'd never gone all the way with anyone, and how much she regretted her mistakes. She wrote that she still loved Jason and would wait for him to come home, no matter how long it took. Jason's response was short and brutally honest. Rachel, you haven't been a wife to me since you lost all that weight last year, he began. It's like you decided you were too good for me. You soaked up the attention from every man around you and made me feel like an afterthought. Those Wednesday nights when you came home late, all hot and bothered, you didn't want to make love to your husband. You just wanted sex to blow off steam. I guess I didn't do it for you anymore. He didn't hold back. You and Claire are free to live however you want now. I told you she'd be the one to come between us, but you wouldn't listen. Well, you were right about one thing. I'm moving on. Lucas, Ivy, and I are building a new life based on love and trust. You're welcome to see Lucas anytime you want. Get a webcam, and I'll set it up so you can talk to him. The final blow came at the end of the letter. Sign the papers, Rachel. Mom's putting the house up for sale this week. There's no chance in hell we'll ever get back together, so don't hold out hope that I'll change my mind. I hope you found whatever it was you were looking for. I never wanted it to end like this. Rachel sat in stunned silence, rereading the letter over and over. Deep down, she knew Jason was right. She'd been a fool to listen to her so-called friends, most of whom were divorced themselves. She'd thrown away a good marriage for a fantasy that never existed. She had planned to fight for Jason until that letter arrived. After reading it, she knew it was over. She signed the papers. The irony? 6 months later, Rachel was back to the 175 pounds she'd started with 2 years earlier. But Jason was no longer hers. I, on the other hand, was happy. The work overseas wasn't easy. There were language barriers and cultural differences, but I pushed through. Lucas was picking up the local language quickly and making friends, and Ivy handled everything on the home front. She planned our weekends with lists of places to see and things to do. One night, shortly after we arrived in the new country, we were all feeling a bit stressed. Lucas fought going to bed. My project wasn't going as smoothly as I'd hoped, and Ivy seemed a little overwhelmed. She walked into the den, kissed the back of my neck, and whispered, "Let's go to bed." I smiled as she took my hand and led me into our room. The only light came from 2 candles, one on each side of the bed. We undressed each other slowly and slipped under the covers. That night, heaven and earth became one. For the first time, we made tender, meaningful love. There was no guilt, no hesitation, just 2 people completely connected. Over the next few months, we explored everything we wanted from each other, as long as it didn't involve pain or farm animals. We were more than happy. 5 months later, we returned home. Mom met us at the airport, beaming as she hugged Lucas tight. On the drive back, I noticed her glancing at Ivy in the rearview mirror. Ivy sat with a serene, contented look on her face. "How far along are you?" Mom asked suddenly. Ivy's eyes widened in surprise. 3 months. How did you know? I'm barely showing. Mom chuckled. You two just look way too happy. Like the cat that ate the canary. 2 weeks later, Ivy and I got married. 6 months after that, we welcomed our daughter, Ruby. When Ivy mentioned wanting to join a gym to shed the baby weight, I couldn't hide my reaction. My face must have gone pale. 2 days later, I sprang the news on her. "I hired you a personal trainer," I said. "They'll bring all the equipment here. No need to go through all that crap again." I wasn't about to make the same mistake twice. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.